we've done about 900 startups. We've invested about 1,400 crores. We have about 5,000 investors on our Angel AIF. And my team actually, along with a lot of other people today, have curated the entire Maharathi challenge. And, just picking up a leaf from yesterday's conversation of the Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal, is that we had the highest number of applications in deep tech and AI. So just kind of bringing that up, because I think there is a lot of misconception that India does not have enough deep tech companies today. But with that, I'll give the mic over to Vivek.
Hi, thank you. I'm Vivek. I'm general partner at Samved VC. We are an early stage US-based fund which is investing in India. And our core thesis is that India needs to improve the productivity. So anything which helps people improve the productivities of our interests. So that's what we focus on. I've been an active angel investor for the last 10-15 years. I'm very active on the Let's Venture platform. And I had a large group of syndicate behind me, and some of us have come together to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mahavir.
Hi, I'm Mahavir. I've been angel investing for 13-14 years. Founded Rajasthan Angels, Thai India Angels, and now doing my own fund, investing in idea and early stage companies 0 to 1. Thank you.
I am Vibhur. I'm part of a fund called Capital to Be. It's an $80 million fund. And we're largely investing in science and tech companies, early stage.
Hi, I'm Vikram Vaidyanathan. I lead a fund called Z47. We were called Matrix Partners India before. We manage roughly $1.5 billion in India and invest at early stages, usually check sizes of $4 to $5 million to start with. We also have an early stage platform which is an angel syndicate called DVC, where we do much smaller checks of $100,000 and so on. We're the first investors in the Ola group of companies, including Ola Electric, Razorpay. I know the Captain Fresh founder was just here, Off Business and so on.
So I'm going to dive straight in. I think a lot of people want to understand how do you get the first check after the coffee you have with the investor. But Vivek, you are a 0 to 1 investor, and you actually have taken a lot of bets at very early stages. Tell us, how do you build conviction when you meet the founder without a product, without any market at that point of time?
So I think for people like me, the journey starts much before we have the meeting. We already have certain thesis in mind. We keep ourselves informed, and based on that, we are on the lookout for the right founders who would solve that problem. So chances are very high that when we are meeting the founders, we already have a thesis in that domain. And then if we resonate with the founder's vision and what he's trying to do, so that's the bet we take. So at our stage, we are not looking so much at traction or the revenue or the anything like that. It's basically, if we have conviction in that space, and if we find that we resonate with the founder's vision, we like the founder, so that chemistry is there. So what I'm trying to say is that more often than not, we already have a thesis around what he's trying to do, and then we come in at that early stage. We don't have too much to go as far as data is concerned.
Okay. So I'm going to now go to Mahavir, because I want to bust some of the myths which we have about, not enough entrepreneurship in tier 2 cities. And Mahavir, you come from Jaipur, and I think Jaipur has probably seen some of the best exits in the ecosystem today, right? So tell us a little bit more of what don't we see or what don't we understand. And you've been in that space for a long time, right? So tell us, how has it evolved? And where is the kind of exit coming from a city like Jaipur?
See, I have always been professing the fact that the tier 2, tier 3 cities in India have a much better opportunity for startups to be in, with cost of living, quality of life, etc., and overheads being low. But I think Jaipur has been an anomaly because the ecosystem has come together and evolved. We as Rajasthan Angels started in 2000. Thai started in 2002, Angel in 2011, and we were only investing in Rajasthan-based startups for the first 3-4 years. And then the government picked up from 2015-16 onwards, and now we're still working in sync with with each other, and we are getting HNIs and ultra HNIs to convert to investors. We're educating them. We're working with incubators. So I think the ecosystem has to come together, and the fact that it's close to Delhi, very easy to get into and get out of, was one other reason. The other reason I think Jaipur or Rajasthan has inherently is dhanda. You know, we don't worry about the top line as business people. We need to be very secure on what we spend, how we spend. So we are very, very frugal with the fundraisers that have happened in the startups in Rajasthan. We've not gone overboard. The fact that we are sitting put in Jaipur and saving money in itself is a proof to that. So I think it's absolutely technology, idea, passion, everything works, but I think bottom line is very, very critical. And we've seen that through tough times in the last 5 or 6 years. So I think Jaipur has proved beyond doubt that you can scale up and be profitable. And that's what's advantage Jaipur.
So proximity to a larger city as well as somebody like, you know, Mahavir there. Because I think you need the champions in the ecosystem, right?
Absolutely.
You need someone who's committed for a longer time.
You have to, every ecosystem has to be branded, and brand ambassadors are very, very critical. Otherwise, you don't come in the news, and you stay put and stay quiet. So I think it's very important to market yourselves. And Jaipur as a city, all of us collectively as investors have marketed well and consistently at every level. So I think that's an advantage too.
Yeah. So now coming to Vibhor, you have a very interesting title on LinkedIn which says Science and Tech Investor. And since we are talking about early stage, and you know, off stage you talked about having made 30 investments, tell us as a deep tech investor, how do you decide when there is no product, you know, when there is very little, because deep tech is a long game, right? We all understand it requires more patient capital. Talk a little bit about, you know, if I'm a deep tech investor as a founder, how do I pitch to Vibhor, and what would make him write the check to me?
So a couple of things, you know, one, I've been a techie for most of my life, right? And I've been doing investing only for the last 5 years. So it's sort of organic for me to look at the science and tech piece first. So I have a thesis. So the kind of founders I'm looking for is one, like Vivek said, who are in line with the thesis. But I'm more intrigued by the founders who are challenging that thesis, right? And I'll read a lot of science and tech journals to understand what's happening in the world. And I love the 60s and the 70s, the hippie culture, because a lot of brilliant papers were written then, which are now becoming plausible and implementable because of the advancements in hardware and software alike. So one is, you know, are people looking at a problem that is worth solving, right? Because a lot of deep tech founders also have a solution-first approach. Hey, I did my thesis in this subject, I went deep in this, and I think this is awesome, and I'm building a company around it, right? I'd rather that the founder is looking at a problem first, and whether or not the solution fits the glove, etc., right? One is that. Second is, will the science work or not? Because the first part of failure is the science won't work, right? And how far will that happen down the line? And can we as early stage investors carry the company till then, you know, when there is a product in sight? And then comes the challenge of commercialization, revenue, etc., which is a far cry in the early days, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a little more complex than what you're trying to tell us, and I think, you know, we have to just kind of start probably meeting more deep tech founders as investors so that you're able to evaluate. Like, I was on the jury of the deep tech and the AI panel, and almost 50% of the companies we kind of marked them as not deep tech. So I think founders like to put that label, but when you go one level deeper, they are like, you're not building a deep tech company. And I think that is important as a founder, not to fall into the wrong category, right? Probably if that startup had applied in a different category, they might have been shortlisted, right?
So one point is there a distinguishable IP there or not?
Yes, yes, yes. Now coming to Vikram, and we spoke about DVC and the pre-seed and the, you know, angel network you're building. I'm just curious if you can talk to us about, you know, how do you actually identify a pre-seed company? And I want to go through that question again and again, because I think each of us will have a very different insight into actually how do I go from coffee to check?
Sure. See, we actually, on DVC, we actually work with a network of angels. And each of you, as you go through your journeys, I'm amazed, like each of you are super nodes in your network, right? Like and there are certain pockets that you're very well known in. And I think for any sort of pre-seed founder, it's actually great to go find that super node who's your champion in the ecosystem. And at least to reach large funds like us, that is actually the best route. And to have that champion and that super node. Now, personally for me, when I meet a founder, what actually works for me, the first is actually, like we were saying, start with that pain point. There is a deep pain point in the world that you've identified, and that it is not a pain point restricted to 5 people, but actually it affects a large set of people in some way. That's the first thing. And putting that shared context, a lot of the times the VC will not, or the investor will not have that shared context that you have on how big a pain point that is, and bring that pain point to life. That's usually how that conversation starts. The second is then the unique solution and why they are best suited. Something, right, that has given them some edge, and a lot of founders miss that in that conversation, right? Bringing yourself to that conversation, saying, this is my edge in terms of solving this unique pain point in some way. And then it is, found this pain point, I have this edge, and then paint a picture of the world. Once I'm done, essentially fixing the world, this is what the world will look like. That's sort of the perfect sort of conversation. Through all of that, what I'm looking for is some deep curiosity, a way in which I can see that this person is going to grow very fast, even if they're very young, because that's what you're betting on through that journey. And then some commercial instincts, even if they're a very technical founder, some commercial instincts early on.
So I'm just curious here, because we're talking so much about networking, meeting people, knowing the right people, getting the right introductions. What do you see the difference between a male and a female founder? Like, where are women advantaged or disadvantaged in this entire early stage?
I think the overall trait that you're looking for, more than just networking, is being highly resourceful. Right? The difference between a founder and a manager is founder sets goals and then figures out what resources to get.
Yes.
And this network is one of those resources, right? Sometimes it's capital, sometimes it's network capital, it's just a resource that you're looking to get, and so on. I do think, and my wife is in the room and she leads a very large part of PhonePe. And so I do think that women have certain advantages, but they miss some of the old boys network which isn't there. So they miss the natural network capital, and they have to fight a little bit harder to actually build that network capital in some way. I think there are communities that are helping, but I do think overall as an ecosystem, a lot more needs to get done.
You're just being polite. I think the women have to work probably a lot more harder, because I think it's still a very bro club culture in investing today, right? There are very few. I mean, we are still building that up, and I think times are changing. But I think
all
there is still a long effort.
I would say all female founders in my network, as well as in our angel group and so on, all say that, like you said, you use the word polite, but maybe I don't understand the levels of pain point enough, and I think that is true, right? Because I don't have an intuitive understanding of that. It is true that there is a large gap, but it is true that overall women founders have raised less money, and the valuations are less. So you can see that it is a problem in the ecosystem.
Yeah, but I think things are also changing, which I always tell my women founders, is that the customer does not know whether it's a male or a female who's built the company, right? So if you can build a product which has customer love, I think you will win the market. I mean, why would investors not invest in a good business, right? I don't think that the bias is so strong today, right? So I think it is about focusing on this problem market, problem solution, right? Like, what are you trying to build? How are you building the business? I think, and then eventually you will get the attention.
Yeah, so we've backed 2 female founders in the recent past. One is Ruchi, who's the founder of Oxizo, and Romita, who's the founder of Foxtail. I would say they just went out and created that network for themselves.
Yes.
They did have the advantage of being from some large networks like McKinsey and IIT, but then they just built on that.
Absolutely. So Vivek, if I were to come back to you, if a founder is pitching and if you have to walk away from a conversation, what is that one thing which will just say, this is a red flag and I don't want to do this?
See, for me, when I'm investing, what I want is the problem they're trying to solve and whether you will scale or not. And for me, the scale is basically, can I visualize a repeatable, scalable model that if you're able to solve, there are many such customers that you'll be able to go after. So what happens especially, and that has happened lately, is that sometimes you get very good founders with very good solutions, but the validation has come from a one-off client which will not be repeatable, scalable. They'll get some validation from a CSR grant, or they will have some thing which has worked with a government and they feel that gives them the right to win. So, they'll come back and say, we have this product which has been validated because they have got this grant or they have this order from the government. And you go deeper into it and then you realize that though they may be saying that they have certain X amount of revenue, the scalable part of that revenue or the repeatable part of that revenue is minuscule.
So basically some validation of repeatability and moving towards that product.
Yeah, I mean, that is what you need to concentrate on. Don't concentrate on this one-off things and take that as your right to win and start tom-tomming to your investors because I've got this. You fund us. And when you look at the things which is going to be the long grind, you see that the focus is not there or that is not on their radar, how difficult the life is. So that is something that puts you off. They are going to chase one large customer rather than something which will scale. So that is something that so if somebody comes and says, I have this one customer or this one validation which I find will not be repeatable, that's a red flag for me.
So can we just go across, because I think this is an important point for founders, like what is just kosher and don't come to me.
So I'll tell you one red flag that I have.
Yes.
Is that actually an investor told me to do this or a VC said this. Right?
Yes.
And it happens, and I understand that as founders you go to VC meetings and you think, hey, this investor actually likely knows best. But do not outsource your judgment to investors, because the investor is there for 30 minutes, and usually, and I will say it with all respect to all of my fellow investors, we know a lot less about we know almost next to nothing about your business versus you.
Absolutely.
So actually what you should be really focused on in making decisions is actually your consumer, your customer, what's happening with that product market fit, and bring that insight into the room. So one red flag for me is, when I asked what happened, they said, oh, this investor gave us feedback, so we did this. That is absolutely not what you should be doing.
So this is always an advice or a thought we tell our founders is that, the VC does not know everything, right? And I think a lot of people outside your core team will not know the business as well as you will know it. Vibhor?
Buzzwords.
Yes.
The moment somebody says we are an AI company, I have a null pointer exception. And the other thing is over-amplifying the solution in your own head, right? And undermining direct or indirect competitive landscapes.
Yes.
Right? Because everything is very nuanced, and all of a sudden you'll have a left field ball hitting you, and you would not know what to do. So just a very, very deep understanding of the entire landscape is something very essential in my view.
Yeah. Mahavir?
I agree with what everyone said, but in addition to that, it's just not one red flag, it's a combination of many red flags. I think not knowing your product, your projections, your numbers, you have to live, breathe, eat, sleep your startup. These guys over-exaggerate and oversell or undersell, whatever. They're clueless when it comes to numbers, and whether an investor has told them or a chartered accountant has told them or someone has told them this is a valuation, they have no justification or reasoning to give when you say, why are you asking for so much of valuation, and why do you need 5 crores or why not 2 crores? They are not sure of where they're going in the next 2-3 years, because they've just gathered and mustered things, cut, copy, paste, and heard from people and put everything together. Just because they're raising 5 crores does not make their valuation to be 50 crores.
Yes.
There has to be justification on everything, and not knowing all of that is also a red flag. That means that person is just raising money for the sake of raising money,
yes,
and not for doing the business that he's supposed to be doing.
So for me personally, the red flag is just ethical boundaries, right? I think there are some founders who start with a number in the beginning of the meeting. By the time they've ended the meeting, the numbers have changed, and they are not able to listen, right? So when you tell them something, the reaction is, it's such great feedback, and I love what you're saying, and I'm like, okay, we've just spent 30 minutes today, right? And I think just getting influence and trying to be the pleaser in the meeting, I think those are all just like, you don't want to work with such people in the long term, right?
There's lack of conviction, actually.
Yes, lack of conviction. I think we have like 5 minutes left, so I wanted to open it up for questions, but just one last rapid fire, okay? TAM or team?
Team, any day. Team is much more important because TAM will be decided by how the team executes.
Yeah. What about you, Mahavir?
Oh, obviously. I mean, I don't even look at the Sam, Tam, Tom slide at all. I don't care. It's a team.
Yeah. For you, what about product or the idea? Because it is deep tech, right? So I'm still curious, how does early stage happen in deep tech?
The possibility of that idea becoming a product.
Okay, that's great. And about you, single founder or multiple founder teams?
Depends on the stage. It's early founders, then I would say having a couple of founders. I mean, there is a thing about, running. If you want to run fast, you go alone. If you want to run far, you go together. So
Absolutely. But now I'm going to open it up for questions. I'm sure there are a lot of people who have questions. Can we pass the mic around?
All right. Where do we go?
Keep your questions short because I want to have at least 3 questions.
Yeah, sure. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you identify the right product fit? Whenever you are having a bet with a founder, or maybe you are having a bet with a particular product, so how can you judge in maybe a one-line conversation?
Oh, just by sheer experience. We listen to pitches every single day, and we quickly know what will work, what will not work in a certain idea. So it's very, very quick and very brief for me, at least. I mean, I know what I want. I know where I want to invest. I know, in my opinion, what will work or not work. So I'm very quick. Depends on, based upon experience.
I think if you want to bring it to life, I would say there has to be product love. That some user suddenly is living some part of their life on your product. And it is just palpable, like he said, that user loves your product.
Vivek, you had some
So, I've been an investor, and for me that's the whole question, when has the founder moved from MVP to market fit? And my hack is that if I talk to a founder and he's talking about the features that he's going to add, I know that he's still in the discovery phase. The moment founder starts talking about the customers and expansion, I know that they have found the market fit. So what I've realized the hard way is that when you're talking to the founders, the vocabulary of the founder changes when they're talking to investors if they found the market fit.
Great.
Awesome. That's a great point.
Thank you so much for sharing your answers.
Yeah, one more question because I have one question for the panel at the end.
Hello, my question is regarding legal tech. As a platform is offering online notarizations to the Indian public, so who would be a better fit for to get the investment, the government or because a lot of groups are showing interest, but who do we sit with in these cases?
Legal tech? Did you say legal tech?
Yes.
And what the question was?
Bringing digital notarizations to the general public, to the NBFCs, to the government, to the everything.
So my advice is always keep the government as the next option once you find your real customer.
Last option, sorry,
Last
not next.
option.
Well, the platform is already online and we are just searching for the investors. So government is the first option to go to?
I would not recommend that. I think you have to find customers who will pay quickly, right? Because there is a process of getting approved through the government machinery.
Yeah, we have already done it.
So then you should go through that. Whatever works best for you as a founder. So coming back to this, the last question I have, since we spoke about going to the government, and this question is specifically for Vibhor, right? If we were to create a process where we say in the next 5 years, we want to strengthen the deep tech and AI ecosystem of India, because that's where we believe value creation will happen. I actually think the last 10 years what has happened is great, because it has created better economy for the people who would not have access to capital, right? So in terms of, all the food sharing apps and all the ride sharing apps, all that has actually created employment. It has started to build the flywheel of the economic momentum in the country, right? But if I were to look at the next 5 years, and if I were to take one proposal to the government, Vibhor, you have to represent us today.
Putting me in a spot. Bunch of things actually. First thing is what you just said. Change the investor sentiment about government as a customer.
Yes.
Right? Most deep tech companies that I meet, government would probably be the first and only customer that they will have. There is no running away from that. Defense. Most of the innovation in the West started from defense. The internet came from defense, right? In the US and Europe, people are happy that you're working with the government, because that means it'll see through.
Yes.
Commercialization will happen.
Yes.
It isn't the case in India. So first thing that has to change is that. Second thing I believe is that the way we have PhD done in our country has to change. Right? There is basic research, there is applied research, and there is user-based research. I think a lot of emphasis has to be on applied research and user-based research. Which are the problems worth solving? You don't need citations in papers, you need PhD to entrepreneurship pathways.
Got it.
The third thing is we need a blended stack of capital. If you look at deep tech, Series A and Series B beyond, nobody's picking up these companies for the heavy lifting.
Yes.
Show me traction, show me, commercialization. If there was any commercialization, they wouldn't need venture capital so much, right? And deep tech is not something like your B2B and B2C, pump in more money and things will happen, right? So therefore you need a blended stack of capital where you have equity, you have debt, you have MSME kind of loans that the government provides, because these are, again, after a point in time, they will mimic the classic manufacturing paradigm, most of these companies. I mean, top three in my view.
And just again an observation, because I was on the AI deep tech jury, 30% of the companies were bootstrapped who actually came to us, and they've done pretty good traction. Right, so I think there is that momentum building up. But anybody has closing thoughts here on the panel?
I share Vibhor's, I would say, historical pessimism on where the government is in terms of as a customer and so on. But we've seen some of this change, right? And I think we are the first investor in Ola Electric, which is essentially started as a EV play, then became a battery play and so on. I don't think that could have been possible without the debt capital balance sheet, and I think it's very important what Vibhor said. As a founder, you have to think of not just equity funding, but multiple other ways of building your balance sheet in order to go after this opportunity. But then the PLI opportunity showed up. That's what made that entire thing show up, right? So as a founder, to think of these different capital bases, but I do think, I used to be there saying government is the last customer, but what I've seen with, for example, the payments ecosystem actually now starting to get all the subsidies on time on a quarterly basis, as well as the EV ecosystem starting to happen, I think some of this is changing. But I also work for an Israeli startup. Everything came out of defense. We don't have that talent density and ecosystem.
You have anything to add here?
I mean, it might have come out of defense, but drone tech was killed in India because of dependence on government. I think we were lagging behind. Blockchain, with the stigma of crypto, is kind of stuck because of all of these things, and there's so much that blockchain can do. I think I somehow feel that from land records to birth, death, whatever degrees, there's so much that the government can help enable deep tech, but I don't see that happening for some reason or the other. And that is where, as an early stage investor, I become wary of a startup or a deep tech company that will depend on a government or governments across the world. So it is a challenge. I don't know if these 3 points will help solve it, but a lot of shift has to happen.
Anything to add, Vivek?
Yes, I work very closely with the incubators at various IITs, from IIT Madras to IIT Kanpur, and now even Plaksha universities. And I think that thing is changing, because deep tech, if you're talking about the startups, at the end of the day, the first research has to happen. It's only once you have that, what the fundamental research is there, that will translate into some kind of product. So I think that is changing. I work very closely with IIT Kanpur, and some of the startups there in the deep tech are really interesting. We are working with Plaksha also. We have this center of excellence. They have the concept of grand challenges, which we are where the deep research is going on to identify the right problems and solving that. So that I think the university will have to be a big part of the research, the deep tech ecosystem.
Yeah, so just as a closing note, I'm part of the organizing committee of Startup Mahakumbh, and I've seen the immense effort selflessly which everybody has put in, because we believe that this decade belongs to India, right?
Absolutely.
And it's great that we are having these very difficult conversations and challenging each other instead of, all of us coming and appreciating each other and not talking about the issues that matter. So thank you for all of you for taking the time out, and it has been a pleasure moderating this session.
Thank you, Chan.
Thank you, Chan.
To stay informed about the startup ecosystem, subscribe to My Startup TV.